From the granite peaks, a spirit rose, defying any crown that tried to depose. We took Ticonderoga in the morning mist, with freedom's fire and an iron fist. I'm proud to be a Green Mountain boy. Yeah, Green Mountain boy.
Most popular histories paint the Green Mountain Boys as a noble band of patriotic farmers, fighting for American liberty from the very beginning. The unvarnished truth is far more complex, driven not by global ideals of democracy, but by an intense, localized real estate war. In 1749, the governor of New Hampshire, Benning Wentworth, began selling land patents in the territory west of the Connecticut River, an area known as the New Hampshire Grants. Wentworth pocketed massive personal fees for these transactions, completely ignoring a vague, older royal decree that gave the exact same land to the province of New York. By 1764, King George III officially ruled that the land belonged to New York. The Yorkers immediately demanded that the existing settlers buy back their own farms at exorbitant New York prices or face eviction. Enter the Allen family. Ethan Allen, along with his brothers Ira and Levi, and their cousin, Remember Baker, didn't just own family farms. They had formed the Onion River Land Company. They were major land speculators who had invested thousands of pounds in New Hampshire titles. If New York successfully asserted control, the Allen family stood to lose their entire financial empire. To protect their investments, the settlers gathered at the Catamount Tavern in Bennington. They organized a local militia to repel New York sheriffs, surveyors, and buyers. The authorities in Albany didn't view them as freedom fighters. They officially branded them the Bennington Mob and issued warrants for their arrest. It wasn't until 1772 that they adopted the defiant, localist name we know today, the Green Mountain Boys. The methods the Green Mountain Boys used to keep New York authorities at bay were brutal, highly effective, and deeply vigilante in nature. They established an underground system of intimidation designed to humiliate outsiders and terrify anyone who dared cooperate with New York. Their signature punishment became known as the Beach Seal. When a New York surveyor or official was caught on the grants, they weren't typically shot. Instead, they were subjected to a mock trial, usually held inside a local tavern. Once found guilty of trespassing, the sentence was a severe flogging with blue beach switches. The term Beach Seal was a grim, sarcastic play on words. The stripes left on the victim's back were called New York's official seal of land ownership. Those who did not suffer the Beach Seal faced psychological warfare. The Green Mountain Boys routinely unroofed the cabins of New York settlers, burned their hayricks, and drove off their cattle. In one famous instance, a New York sympathizer named Dr. Samuel Adams was tried at the Catamount Tavern. His punishment was to be hoisted up in a chair and suspended beneath the tavern's sign, a massive stuffed catamount skin, for hours, exposed to the jeers and insults of the townspeople. The governor of New York eventually grew so desperate that he sentenced Ethan Allen and his top lieutenants to death in absentia, offering massive financial rewards for their capture. The violence struck close to home in August of 1775. Remember Baker, a brilliant surveyor, mechanic, and one of the original captains of the Green Mountain Boys, led a scouting mission across the Quebec border. He was ambushed and killed by a party of pro-British scouts. His death shook the militia to its core, transforming the conflict from a localized property dispute into a bloody, personal segment of the Revolutionary War. On May 10, 1775, the Green Mountain Boys secured their place in American history by capturing Fort Ticonderoga, achieving the first offensive victory of the American Revolution. Yet, the behind-the-scenes reality of that morning was a logistical mess fueled by intense ego clashes. When Ethan Allen and his men arrived at Hands Cove to prepare for the pre-dawn raid across Lake Champlain, another officer unexpectedly rode into camp, Colonel Benedict Arnold. Sent by the Massachusetts Committee of Safety, Arnold held an official commission to command the attack. What followed was a fierce, profane argument on the lakeshore. Arnold demanded absolute control. The Green Mountain Boys flatly refused to serve under anyone but Allen, threatening to mutiny and row back home if Arnold took charge. In a tense compromise, the two men walked through the fort's gates side by side, though the men clearly answered only to Allen. Due to a shortage of boats, only 83 Green Mountain Boys actually crossed the lake for the initial assault. They caught the British garrison completely asleep. The fort was captured without a single shot fired in anger. However, standard history books rarely mention what happened immediately after the victory. Fort Ticonderoga held a massive store of British liquor. Within hours of the capture, discipline disintegrated entirely. The Green Mountain Boys plundered the private quarters of the British officers and began a multi-day drinking binge. Benedict Arnold, horrified by the lack of military conduct, tried to restore order, only for Allen's men to hold him at gunpoint. Within a few weeks, the fort's alcohol supply ran dry, and the men, anxious about their neglected spring crops, simply began walking away. When the Continental Congress officially voted to absorb the Green Mountain Boys into the Continental Army later that summer, the troops held a democratic vote for their new commander. In a shocking blow to Ethan Allen's ego, the men rejected him, choosing his more stable, reliable cousin, Seth Warner, to lead the regiment. As the smoke of the Revolutionary War cleared, the leaders of the Green Mountain Boys turned their attention toward a new challenge: carving out a sovereign nation. In 1777, they declared the independence of the Vermont Republic, operating for 14 years as a standalone country, before achieving statehood in 1791. Behind this astonishing political feat lay an interconnected network of men bound by a shared philosophy. To fully understand the leadership of early Vermont, one must look to the Masonic fraternity. While historical myths occasionally claim Ethan Allen was a deeply involved Mason, the documented factual record tells a different story. Allen was initiated as an entered apprentice in Connecticut, but his turbulent life prevented him from advancing further. He was a philosopher who wrote extensively on deism, and his worldview heavily emphasized independent reason over dogma. It was his younger brother, Ira Allen, the diplomatic mastermind of Vermont's independence, along with Thomas Chittenden, Vermont's first governor, who stepped forward to anchor the fraternity in the new republic. On June 26, 1782, both Ira Allen and Thomas Chittenden were initiated into Vermont Lodge No. 1. They later completed their degrees in North Star Lodge after its chartering in 1785. During this formative era, it was common practice for lodges to conduct their primary business on the first degree, meaning these foundational leaders sat together in lodge, applying the symbolic tools of the craft to the chaotic business of building a state. The tenets of Freemasonry, brotherly love, relief, and truth, offered a quiet, stabilizing framework for men who spent their days defending a fragile frontier from British invasion, New York politics, and internal division. The legacy of the Green Mountain Boys is not just one of buckskin jackets, muskets, and tavern brawls. It is the story of a fiercely independent, hardy race of settlers who protected their property with unyielding grit, organized a functioning republic out of a wilderness dispute, and used the timeless principles of the square and the compass to help lay the permanent foundations of Vermont.
From the New Hampshire grants, a stubborn creed, on granite soil we planted the seed. No New York charter would tell us our worth, defending hearth and home, the sovereign earth. We stood as one at Fort Ticonderoga's wall, answered freedom's call, and gave our all. A Green Mountain boy I'm proud to be, a son of Vermont, forever free. A Green Mountain boy I'm proud to be, a son of Vermont, forever free.